Hey guys, this is Detox, and I'm Levi Gates, and with me today, Mr. Dan Williams of Optimum Polymer Technologies, and Mr. Ivan LaCroix of Optimum Polymer Technologies. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
So today's topic is going to be something that a lot of guys get confused about, but if you've been in the industry a long time, processes change.
Yes.
For those of us that have been in it longer, single stage versus clear. So those of us that have been in it longer, single stage has been around a lot longer.
Yes.
But it's still in effect. There are still cars that are getting single stage paint jobs.
Correct.
Repaints, things like that.
Even brand new cars.
Even brand new cars will get single stage paints. Even higher end cars will actually get single stage paint
And we
jobs.
actually have now candy paints with tinted clear coats.
Yep.
So that's another thing.
Yeah, so when we talk about single stage,
Yeah, everything is together. Basically, when we have a base coat, clear coat paint, we have the color in one layer,
Yep.
and then they put a clear coat on top. When we have a single stage paint, the clear coat and the base coat are essentially mixed together. It's not quite that,
Right.
but in a raw sense, that's what it is. So you have pigment all the way to the top of the paint,
Right.
as opposed to having a clear layer between the two, or on top. The clear coat was developed, actually, Dr. Gadusi had a hand in that, the owner and chief chemist of Optimum Polymer
That's
Technologies.
right.
He had a hand in developing clear coat. That's why our products work so well with it. But nonetheless, the clear coat acts as a UV barrier, first of all. It helps to keep the gloss longer than a single stage paint.
Right.
A single stage paint will oxidize visibly. Clear coat still oxidizes. You just don't see it.
it just sort of dulls lightly. It's
Dulls
not
lightly.
as- yeah.
Whereas we've all seen a red car that's gone pink
Yes.
in time. And that's single stage oxidizing.
And what I always did for customers, if they'd come in and they were like, oh, I don't know if this will buff out. I think it's single stage, but I'm not sure. I'd just lick my thumb a little bit
Yeah.
and just rub the paint. And if the shine comes back to it and it's a really dull faded section and that shine comes back to that one little
Yeah.
spot, yeah, we can buff it out. It's single stage paint. Or if you have a towel or something and you wipe that do that same trick
Yeah.
and the color comes off on your towel,
Exactly.
that's one way you know. So especially with single stage when you're buffing.
Oh, definitely. And we get a lot of calls from detailers. The first time they ever do a single stage paint, they go, "What's wrong? My pad turned red."
Yeah.
Oh, well, you're doing a red single stage.
Yeah.
So they also have some of the cheap paints that are integrated clear coats or single stage from
Yeah.
like a low end shop. One of the worst experiences I had was my buddy's 66 Chrysler, which is the size of a battleship, black. After about a year and a half, it just started, like rainbow started coming up, and it looked like OptiCoat high spots all over the top surfaces of the paint, and you could not polish them out. I tried
Wow.
wet sanded, I tried rotary, I tried everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely it's one of the things we always liked when we get one. I love working on single stage paint. I think it's
Easy to turn around.
You can just bring it right back, and it's the shine you can get out of it. It's pretty fun, especially to go from something that dull and make something super glossy.
Would that be a difference, like with a lacquer paint or a single stage paint, or that cheap integrated clear coat? Because I think that's what they actually call it.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of different grades of single stage paint. We had lacquer back in the 40s to the 70s, early 70s. Then they had urethane based single stage paints, and those are still available today. And then you have the integrated clear coat, which is really, really a cheap.
It's like $100 Mako job.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. I was trying
We
not to
got
say any
primer,
names,
we
but-
got paint, or not Mako, but one of those discount. Hey, get your car painted for $1.50.
$3.99.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
yes.
and it's all primer, color. If you've worked on cars, you've seen it. It's a really bad paint.
Yeah.
It really is bad.
Yeah,
So if you're a detailer, if somebody brings you a car and they got it painted at a really low quality or low end paint shop, just pass that one by.
Yeah.
There's not a lot you can do to it. I've had customers that pull up and go, well, I bought this car and it was repainted. Is there anything I can do because it's got some tree sap on it? No,
It was only $300. Go get it repainted. I'm going to charge you more
we're
than
gonna charge
that.
you more to fix it, literally.
So, single stage paints, don't panic when you see your pad change colors. It's normal. And that's a difference with the Hyper Paint Correction system. We always tell people to wash their pad after every panel. And single stage paint very much illustrates why we tell people to do that. Because if you're working with clear coat, you get as much transfer on your pad.
You're technically as dirty as single stage. Like it's
right.
Exfoliated.
Yeah, it's just you don't see it because it's clear.
Yep.
So your pad gets as gummed up, it gets as much transfer on it as you do with a single stage.
Yeah.
But you don't see it.
And a lot of guys never thought of that, never realized it.
No, exactly.
I remember I had guys that would always complain about that, and they were like, "Oh, I hate working on." We get an old truck that showed up single stage. Like, I hate working on it. It makes such a mess. And I was like, it makes the same mess as a clear coated car. It's just you're seeing color now. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You know, it's like those videos when they show people coughing and they're like, if you could see your germs, like that's
no.
It's basically it's you know, everything's stained red. Their shirts are stained red. So
another thing with the new tri-stage or tri-coat paints. There's two types of tri-coat paints. Cadillacs in the early 2000s had the pearlescent tri-coats,
right.
And that was a solid base coat. Then they put on a pearlescent mid coat, and then they put on a clear coat. So those were correcting just like we do a normal clear coat. Ford in the last couple of years has two colors in their lineup that are tinted clear. One is their ruby red, and the other one is
gorgeous
their
color.
Yeah, that's the
color of your Mustang.
Yeah, my car is that color, and the other one is a vibrant blue that I think it's only on the F-150 and the Focus RS, but it's a very bright, vibrant blue. As soon as you start polishing on it, your pad becomes that color. And it's like the old candy paint jobs that we had on hot rods in the 60s and 70s, which means it's a metallic base coat and a tinted clear coat. And the clear coat is tinted red.
Yeah.
Those you have to be very careful when you do paint correction on, because as you're polishing them, you're actually removing that tinted clear. As you're removing that tinted clear, it becomes lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. And
you can make a scratch correction this big turn into something this big.
Yeah, and when you turn it into something that big, you now have, like my car is the ruby red. I've seen cars come into our shop that had been polished somewhere else, and that's exactly what they did. They tried to polish out a scratch, and now they had a pink spot because they took too much clear coat off. They're basically wearing that color off and getting down to the metallic base coat.
Wow.
So the only way to correct that is to repaint.
Yeah.
So those cars are very, very difficult to work with.
And also the European cars like 10 years ago maybe came out with that ceramic clear coat.
Yes.
Where they had like silicon dioxide infused into the clear coat.
Another
itself.
thing that Dr. G helped bring forth.
And basically those clear coats, they had silicon dioxide mixed into the clear coat. As it's curing, the silicon dioxide rises to the surface of the clear. If you go through that layer of silicon dioxide, you end up with really, really soft paint, or a soft clear coat in that case.
But boy, until you get there, that is
hard as a rock.
A black Porsche Cayenne.
Yeah.
But it was like polishing a diamond. It was like to get any correction out of it.
Right.
Of course, that was years ago when I was running my buffer really high because didn't have it all in there yet.
Yeah, those paints you have to be careful when you're correcting not to remove too much material, because when you do, you get to that soft underlayer, then it's game over.
Yeah, well, and if you haven't yet, invest in like a paint thickness gauge and learn about it, utilize it, especially if you get some old cars that come in.
Yeah.
That was one thing that we used to do a ton of old cars that would come up.
Right.
For some reason, a lot of people liked us because we could revive some of these old paints, and they really enjoyed it. So we got a bunch of them. But you never know how much paint is actually on the surface. And the scary thing with single stage is sometimes there's not much left, especially if it's an original paint or it's an old paint.
Yeah.
So we would go and make sure we could measure and know what was allowable, what we could do. If we couldn't cut this spot out, we were just going to do a quick light polish on it just to brighten it.
Yeah.
And there were times we had cars. We had a 55 Oldsmobile that had a seafoam green paint, but it didn't have very much left on the tops of the headlights, and so we had to make sure we were very gentle. We didn't want to burn through, and because with single stage, once you burn through that paint, it's still shiny, but the black patina or under the primer coat that's underneath will also shine.
Yeah,
exactly. Like that. So it looks kind of cool, but your customer may not like it.
Not necessarily what the customer might
I
be
think
after.
it looks neat.
Yeah.
But yeah, so invest in a small, and you can get them priced all the way up to the high end if you want. We found one on Amazon that worked really well for us.
Yeah, you can get them around $200-300.
Yep.
They're accurate, they work well, and it gives you an average for an area.
Yeah.
They're not going to pinpoint every little inch for you. So
it's a great sales tool also.
Yeah.
I mean, you look pretty good if you're like getting ready doing an estimate on somebody's car and you're like, well, your paint is this thick, and a lot of places wouldn't do that. So.
Well, we had one customer that appreciated that. He had bought a car, an old, it was a 54 Lincoln Capri convertible, and he got it. It had been sitting for 10 years in a shed, and he was like, I'm pretty sure he goes, this is new paint. And we looked at it, we're like, yeah, it's new paint, because they poorly masked it off, and there was paint everywhere that we were going to remove. But he wanted to know, he's like, I just don't know if it's how thick it is. I don't know how nice it is. And we were able to go through and go, you got plenty of paint.
Right.
Usually repaints are like that. They're 3 times thicker than a factory clear.
Yeah, but he was happy because he was really worried that he was going to have to, because and we could go, well, we can wet sand this, or we can cut this, we can get this part out, and so once he knew there was a lot of paint to work with, he was happy, he was comfortable, and he was totally fine to let us go through it and have some fun with it. And at the same time, we had another gal who stopped in and said, I heard you can do this. I want to have my car looked at, and it was an old Monte Carlo, like a '78.
Yeah.
It's not worth a lot, but she was like, my ex-husband said he put 10 coats of clear on it, and he painted it. Yeah. And I don't believe him. And I was like, when was it painted? And she said, back in like 1998. And I was like, all right. And we got it, and we looked at it, and I was like, that's pretty nice clear to be that old. And sure enough, we put our paint thickness gauge on, and it was just skyrocketed. We were like, there's a lot of clear. We can go swimming in that. Like, we're gonna have some fun. So
is there a limit when you're painting a car to how much clear coat you can actually put on there? Because it seems like the more that you put on, the more you have to work with.
Yeah.
Eventually it will get too thick and it will start cracking. And there are a lot of different formulations of clear coat. You can buy a really cheap clear coat, you can buy a very expensive clear coat, you can buy clear coats that have a very quick setup time, you have clear coats that demand multiple layers. You have clear coats that are designed for show cars that they know that they're going to be putting 5, 6, 8 layers on, wet sanding and doing all that. There are some that they're one shot and go. So there's a lot of variables from the paint industry as to what you're wanting. So if you're having a car repainted and you know you want a show car quality finish, well, make sure that the clear coat they're putting on it is matching what you're wanting to do with the vehicle. And you can get the ceramic clear coats in the aftermarket. You can get very hard clear coats. You can get soft clear coats. You can get all sorts of clear coats that need baking, clear coats that don't need to be baked. And sometimes on a classic car, you don't necessarily want it being baked if you're not taking the interior out, because that high heat isn't always good.
When they do that, how hot is it in there? Is it just IR lamps, or
no,
it's like temperature when they?
Some of them are IR lamps. Some of them are actually a propane furnace or natural gas furnace that heats. So
I think I've never actually stepped inside of a paint booth like that.
Yeah,
it's pretty awesome.
I've seen them.
And now with the water-based paints, they're doing the water-based doesn't require heat to cure. It just requires air movement. So now in the newer paint booths, they have actual fans in the paint booth in the corners that just circulate the air. So, but the clear coat is still solvent based. So
yeah, and one thing that I liked with single stage was once we corrected it and got it back to nice glossy shine, we'd end up using gloss coat because it worked really well to seal the single stage to help prevent any more oxidation. And our customers really enjoyed that, and it was economical for us, and a good price point for them, and they liked that they didn't have to worry about it oxidizing faster.
I had that same situation 5-6 years ago. A guy with a 56 Ford, it was right before SEMA, and he wanted to sell it, and I went and I polished it and I waxed it, and it started turning hazy again or foggy after like only 2 or 3 days. So I went back and I polished it again and put wax on it again. It did it again. I went back the third time and I put OptiCoat on it actually, and he sold it about 2 months later, but at that 2 months, it stayed, it held the color, it didn't turn back.
Yeah. Well, hope we answered enough questions for you guys. If you have any more, email me at levi@theragcompany.com, or you can comment below. Make sure you subscribe to the Optimum Synergy podcast. You can subscribe right here to our Detox, or you can subscribe to the Synergy podcast over here on the left.
How do you guys get that stuff to float up there?
I know, it's pretty cool.
Dane's the magician.
Yeah. Again, thanks Dan, thanks Ivan for coming on, and thank you for watching. Be sure to watch more videos right here at the Rag Company YouTube channel.